Hi, this is the second video in the series for journal entries for treatment of goodwill at the time of admission of a partner. In this video, we will begin with solving example sums for treatment of goodwill in the third method. When premium for goodwill is brought in by the incoming partner and is withdrawn either fully or partly. So let's go to the example sum 1. Example 1. A and B are partners in a business sharing profits and losses in the ratio of 1/3 and 2/3. On 1st April 2019, the capitals were Rs 10,000 and Rs 8,000 respectively. On that date, they admit C into partnership and give him 1/4 share in the future profits. C brings in Rs 8,000 as his capital and Rs 6,000 as goodwill. The amount of goodwill is withdrawn by the old partners in cash. Pass the necessary journal entries in the books of the firm. So let's go ahead with the solution. Journal. Date. Particulars. LF number. Debit rupees and credit rupees. The date of admission of partner is 1st April 2019. We'll write the first journal entry for the capital and the premium for goodwill brought in by partner C. Bank account debit to C's capital account to premium for goodwill account. The total cash received by the firm 8,000 plus 6,000, 14,000 rupees, 8,000 rupees in the form of capital and 6,000 rupees in the form of premium for goodwill, being capital and premium for goodwill brought in by partner C. Next journal entry, same date. We'll distribute the premium for goodwill of Rs 6,000 among the sacrificing partners A and B in the sacrificing ratio. There is nothing mentioned in the question as to the sacrificing ratio, etc. So the sacrificing ratio is equal to the old ratio, which in this case is 1:2. Premium for goodwill account debit Rs 6,000 to A capital account to B capital account. On dividing Rs 6,000 in sacrificing ratio 1:2 against A, we get Rs 2,000 and against B we get Rs 4,000, being premium for goodwill distributed among sacrificing partners in their sacrificing ratio. The final and additional journal entry which we need to write in this specific method is for the amount of goodwill which is withdrawn by the old partners. So the full amount is withdrawn. Let's write the journal entry for that. A's capital account debit, B capital account debit, to bank. Both of them withdraw their full amounts. A withdraws rupees 2000, B withdraws rupees 4000, and totally 6000 goes away from the firm. Narration being PFG fully withdrawn by sacrificing partners. So in the third method, when compared to the second method, there will be an additional journal entry where the sacrificing partners will withdraw the premium for goodwill in cash. Let's go to example 2. Example 2. A and B were partners in a firm sharing profits and losses in the ratio of 3:2. They admitted C as a new partner for 3/7 share in profit, and the new profit sharing ratio will be 2:2:3. C brought rupees 2 lakh as his capital and rupees 1,50,000 as premium for goodwill. Half of their share of premium was withdrawn by A and B from the firm. Calculate the sacrificing ratio and pass the necessary journal entries for the above transactions in the books of the firm. We need to calculate the sacrificing ratio. So we'll begin with the working notes. Old profit sharing ratio between A and B is equal to 3:2. The new profit sharing ratio between A, B and C is also given as 2:3. Let's do old share minus new share. For partner A, old share 3/5 minus the new share 2/7. We get positive 11/35. A has sacrificed. For B, old share 2/5 minus the new share 2/7. We have a positive 4/35. B has also sacrificed. Hence, the sacrificing ratio between A and B is equal to 11/35 is to 4/35, or in other words 11:4. So this is the sacrificing ratio. Let's go ahead and solve the problem. Solution. Journal. Date. Particulars. LF number. Debit rupees and credit rupees. The first journal entry for C, bringing in capital and premium for goodwill. Bank account debit to C capital account to premium for goodwill account. Total cash received by the firm 2 lakh plus 1,50,000 rupees, 3,50,000, 2 lakh in the form of capital and 1,50,000 in the form of premium for goodwill. Narration. Being capital and premium for goodwill brought in by partner C. The second journal entry is to distribute the premium for goodwill of rupees 1,50,000 among sacrificing partners A and B in their sacrificing ratio 11:4. So we have premium for goodwill account debit to A capital account to B capital account. 1,50,000 rupees premium for goodwill. 1,50,000 in the ratio of 11:4. So it's 1,10,000 against A and 40,000 against B. Narration. Being premium for goodwill distributed amongst sacrificing partners in sacrificing ratio. The final journal entry. A and B withdraw half of their share of premium for goodwill. A capital account debit, B capital account debit, to bank account. A withdraws half of rupees 1,10,000, which is rupees 55,000, and B withdraws half of rupees 40,000, which is 20,000 rupees, totally 75,000 rupees withdrawn by the partners. Narration. Being premium for goodwill, half withdrawn by A and B. So this is the way we will solve the sum when only half of the premium for goodwill, that is part premium for goodwill, has been withdrawn by the sacrificing partners. Let's solve an example sum in the fourth method of treatment of goodwill. That is when the capital and premium for goodwill is brought in kind by the incoming partner. So let's go to that example. Example sum. X and Y are partners in a firm sharing profits in the ratio of 3:2. On 1st April 2019, they admit Z as a partner for 1/4 share in the profits. Z contributed the following assets towards his capital and for his share of goodwill. Stock ₹60,000, debtors ₹80,000, land ₹1 lakh, and plant and machinery ₹40,000. On the date of admission of Z, the goodwill of the firm was valued at ₹6 lakh. Pass the necessary journal entries in the books of the firm on Z's admission. We'll begin with the working note. Now we need to calculate how much of capital and how much of premium for goodwill is there as part of the assets brought in by partner Z. Z share of goodwill is equal to the goodwill of the firm, which is ₹6 lakh, multiplied by Z share in profits, which is 1/4, comes up to ₹1,50,000. The total assets is equal to 60,000 plus 80,000 plus 1 lakh rupees plus 40,000. This totals to ₹2,80,000. And therefore, the capital which is brought in by Z is equal to ₹2,80,000, which is the total assets, minus the premium for goodwill, which is 1,50,000, and that comes up to ₹1,30,000. So let's solve the problem. Solution. Date, particulars, LF number, debit rupees, and credit rupees. The date of admission of Z is 1st April 2019. We'll debit all the assets brought in by Z. Stock account, debit 60,000 rupees. Debtors account, debit 80,000 rupees. Land account, debit 1 lakh, and plant and machinery account, debit ₹40,000. To Z's capital, ₹1,30,000, and 2 premium for goodwill, account ₹1,50,000. Narration being capital and premium for goodwill brought in kind by partner Z. The next entry, we will distribute the premium for goodwill in their sacrificing ratio. If we see the sum, it says X and Y are partners in a firm sharing profits in the ratio of 3:2. There is no other information given apart from the share of Z. So we know that the sacrificing ratio will be equal to the old ratio. In other words, 3:2. So we'll distribute the premium for goodwill among X and Y in sacrificing ratio 3:2. So we have premium for goodwill account debit 1,50,000 rupees to X capital account to Y capital account. So we have 1,50,000 in 3:2 comes up to 90,000 for X and 60,000 rupees for Y, being premium for goodwill distributed among sacrificing partners in their sacrificing ratio. So where the incoming partner does not bring in cash for his share of capital and premium for goodwill and instead brings in assets, instead of debiting the bank account, we will debit each of the assets which is brought in by the incoming partner in the first journal entry. Let's start solving example sums in the fifth method of treatment of goodwill at the time of admission of a partner. The fifth method is when only part of the premium for goodwill is brought in by the incoming partner. So let's go to that example. Example sum. X and Y are partners sharing profits and losses in the ratio of 3:2. They admit Z as a partner for 1/5 share. Z acquires a share from X and Y in the ratio of 2:3. The goodwill of the firm is valued at rupees 50,000. Z brings in only 60% of his share of goodwill and rupees 2 lakh as his capital through check. Past necessary journal entries under each of the following alternative cases. The case 1 says when goodwill does not appear in the books, and case 2 says when goodwill appears in the books at rupees 20,000. So let's do the working notes first. To find out Z share of goodwill. So Z share of goodwill is equal to the firm's goodwill multiplied by Z share, which is equal to rupees 50,000 multiplied by 1/5 or rupees 10,000. Now it says here Z brings in only 60% of his share of goodwill in check. So in cash what's bought in is 60%. which amounts to 6,000 rupees. And the amount not brought in by cash is rupees 4,000. We'll begin with case 1. Journal. Date, particulars, LF number, debit rupees and credit rupees. The first journal entry is for the capital and the premium for goodwill brought in by Z. So we have bank account debit to Z capital account to premium for goodwill. Capital brought in rupees 2 lakh and premium for goodwill brought in rupees 6,000. Totally rupees 2 lakh 6,000 received by the firm, being capital and premium for goodwill brought in by partners Z. Now the second journal entry is to distribute Z share of goodwill among the sacrificing partners in their sacrificing ratio. The sacrificing ratio between X and Y, it's given in the problem that Z acquires his share from X and Y in the ratio of 2:3. So this is the sacrificing ratio, 2:3. Now for the amount which is brought in cash, we will debit that amount against premium for goodwill. Premium for goodwill account debit for the rupees 6,000 which is brought by him in cash. I will debit C's current account for the balance rupees 4,000 and credit the sacrificing partners in their sacrificing ratio 2:3. So total 10,000 is credited in 2:3 sacrificing ratio. So against X we have 4,000 rupees and against Y we have 6,000 rupees. So the narration is being goodwill adjusted at the time of Z's admission. So we just finished case 1. These are the 2 entries which are required for case 1 when goodwill does not appear in the books. Let's go to case 2. Case 2. Case 2 says when goodwill appears in the books at rupees 20,000. Let's pass the journal entries. Journal, date, particulars, LF number, debit rupees and credit rupees. Now, since goodwill is existing in the books at rupees 20,000, we will write it off among the old partners X and Y in their old profit sharing ratio. So 20,000 will be written off in 3:2. So we'll write the first journal entry for writing off the existing goodwill. X capital account debit, Y capital account debit to goodwill account. Goodwill appears in the books at rupees 20,000. We'll write it off among X and Y. Against X rupees 12,000 and against Y rupees 8,000. Narration being existing goodwill written off. The next journal entry will be for the capital and the premium for goodwill, which is brought in by Z. So we have bank account debit to Z capital account to premium for goodwill account. The capital brought in by Z rupees 2 lakh and the premium for goodwill that is brought in cash is rupees 6,000. Total cash received by the firm 2,06,000 rupees, being capital and premium for goodwill brought in by partner Z. Now the third journal entry, we need to adjust Z's share of goodwill, which is rupees 10,000, among the sacrificing partners in their sacrificing ratio. Premium for goodwill account debit the amount of premium for goodwill which is brought in cash by Z, rupees 6,000. For the balance amount, I'll debit Z's current account, 4,000 rupees, to X capital account, to Y capital account. 10,000 rupees Z share of goodwill to be divided in sacrificing ratio. The sacrificing ratio is 2:3. So we have 4,000 against X and 6,000 against Y. Narration being goodwill adjusted on Z's admission. I'll remove the split and we can view all the three journal entries under case 2. So these are the three journal entries under case 2. Since goodwill already appears in the books at rupees 20,000, we wrote it off among the old partners in their old profit sharing ratio, which is 3:2.